GMs for hire.
Welcome back to GMs for Hire. I am Matthew Perry. With me is Will Polston, and we have reached the final installment of our NHL previews, this one being the Central Division. And we're just going to get right into it. We're going to hit the Minnesota Wild first, team that finished 35-16-5, third in the West, wound up losing to Vegas in the first round. Guys, they brought in Alex Goligoski, decent defenseman, same with Jordy Ben. They reunite. They used to be teammates on the Stars. And I think the biggest move of the offseason for them was re-signing Kirill Kaprizov. He's got to be their best forward already. So, that's the biggest move for them. Guys that are out, you have to acknowledge Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. After many years with the Minnesota Wild, they're out to greener pastures, and they lost Ian Cole as well, who isn't too shabby himself. Well, this team, losing two of their staples in Ryan Suter and Zach Parise. What are your thoughts on the team moving forward after them?
It's going to be a hell of a turn. Obviously, we're so used to, as hockey fans, seeing Parise and Suter in the green and red for the Wild. But this is going to be one of those to where, you're shedding the old. It's out with the old in with the new. We're going to see somebody like Kaprizov, who put up 50 points last season. You're going to see him step up a little bit. You have to see him take that next step. Obviously, he had a fantastic season. He looked great. If I'm not mistaken, 27 goals, somewhere around there, roughly, and played pretty decent in the playoffs for only the 7 games that they were there. I like the kid. I think it's going to be a little bit of growing pains for the Minnesota Wild, just because, whenever you have 2 cornerstones of your franchise, it reminds me a little bit of similar in baseball, where the Cubs just kind of got rid of their cornerstone pieces this year, where you lose those guys who you're so used to seeing in that uniform, and now next thing you know, they're gone. And I think after that, we saw the Cubs kind of take a big downfall. I could see the Wild still performing around middle of the pack of this division, maybe fighting for a 4 or 3 spot. But overall, I think that it's going to be a little bit of growing pains and just trying to get those young guys going, and trying to get it to the point wherever they can all competently work together throughout a 4-line system.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a step back, and I think you saying middle of the pack, I think that's somewhat accurate. Even without Suter, I still like their defense. Goligoski, bringing him in was nice. Spurgeon and Dumba, just like Parise and Suter, were staples of the Wild for years past, and they're going to be headlining this defense now, which I think works. Who's scoring for them is a question. I think they lack offensive depth. Obviously, Kaprizov will be on the first line, but you don't have really any quality left wingers behind him. Matt Zuccarello and Marcus Foligno, along with Kevin Fiala and Nick Bjugstad. I think that's some good right wing depth, but you're going to want to build more off of that. The center position, I think, needs the most work. You have Eriksson Ek at the top of the center lines, but from there, there's really nobody. A couple, Ryan Hartman is decent, and then a couple newer guys under him, but you're going to want to build depth there. I think they should address that. In net, Cam Talbot, he's trusted. He's been around. I have really no problem with Cam Talbot there. Middle of the pack. I'm not expecting a cup or anything from this Wild team, but if they could sneak into the playoffs, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me at all. And then I think the same goes for this team, who I think have pretty much improved, and that's the Chicago Blackhawks. They weren't great last season, 6th in the Central, missed the playoffs, but they had a good offseason. They traded for Seth Jones, one of the better defensemen in the National Hockey League. They get Marc-Andre Fleury for nothing. Still one of the better goalies in the league. You trade for Tyler Johnson, who was overshadowed a bit, and maybe underperformed his last couple of years in Tampa, but I still am a fan of him, and I still definitely think he has value and something to give. You also bring in Jake McCabe, who was one of the better defensemen in Buffalo for many years. He is now in Chicago. And you don't really lose anyone. You lose Vinny Hinostroza, but your offense is good enough that that's not going to matter. First line now projected. You got DeBrincat, Tyler Johnson, and Patrick Kane. I mean, that's one of the better first lines in hockey, I'd say. Jonathan Taves now back after missing, I think, at least a year. He's slotted into the second line, but he's got Kubalik and Kurashev around him, 2 younger guys who he can definitely make better. And they have, some up and coming guys. Kirby Doc is definitely one that stands out to me. Defensively, it's good. Obviously Seth Jones and Mccabe are big. I think Caleb Murphy is there as well. Calvin Dahan I know is there, but maybe one more defensive piece. Obviously Duncan Keith is gone. It's key to mention that he's off to Edmonton. So we're definitely in a new era of Blackhawks hockey. You still have Taves and Kane, but Corey Crawford's gone, Brent Seabrook's gone, Duncan Keith's gone. A lot of staples from that championship team from 6 years ago now. Definitely,
roughly, yeah.
Definitely a different era. But let me get your thoughts on the Blackhawks.
No, I think you hit it best whenever you talked about the acquisition of Seth Jones. I mean, whenever we got to see Seth Jones on the Blue Jackets in that playoff series against Tampa, I mean, that kid's a workhorse. I mean, if there's a guy that you have to come in and come replace one or maybe even two defensemen, Seth Jones is a guy who can do it. Honestly, in my opinion, one of the hardest working defensemen in the league. I mean, the kid just doesn't seem to tire out. And he's hard. I mean, he blocks shots like an animal. He's just a great defenseman. He keeps the puck in his own zone. Seth Jones is an amazing addition to this. And I remember Marc-Andre Fleury basically got sent over there for free. I mean, it seemed like, great follow-up addition after the loss of Crawford, your cornerstone goalie, and to be able to bring in somebody like Marc-Andre Fleury, who, I mean, in our opinion, we've talked about before, has a very, very sturdy Hall of Fame case. This is a guy who knows how to win. And this is a Blackhawks team with a lot of characters who know how to win. I mean, Taves, Kane, they've all been there before. So this is, exactly. Tyler Johnson, been there before, been there very recently, and some would say, so this is a full of a lot of guys who know how to make something happen. I like the way they've improved. I just don't know if they were far enough or close enough to the curve to catch up to it with the acquisitions that they made this year, because losing Duncan Keith is huge. Obviously, that's going to be a big one. Brent Seabrook hasn't really necessarily been the biggest of, the biggest loss. He was having a little bit of injury issues and stuff like that. So the Blackhawks have been, they've been a little bit behind the curve, but now, I love the acquisition of Seth Jones. Obviously, the addition of Johnson is huge. There's a lot of great key pieces that have been brought into Chicago, and I think they could be looking at a season with quite a bit of upside if everything goes well.
Yeah, I suspect big improvements from last season. Obviously, last season was limited, and you're in a modified division, but with the moves they made, I do have pretty big expectations for them. I would like to see them slip into the playoffs somehow. We'll move to the Winnipeg Jets, who do slip into the playoffs, at least recently. They finished third in the North, but made it to the second round before losing to Montreal. They re-signed Paul Stastny, which I'd say helps, and then added a couple of depth guys: Riley Nash, Nate Schmidt. Guys out: Jordy Ben, Matthew Perreault. Peter Forward, I'm forgetting his first name, but quiet off season, but it's pretty much the same team. Brian Little will be starting the season on the IR, which somewhat is a hit to their offense, but you still have Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler, Nikolai Ehlers, Pierre-Luc Dubois, who I think is important to that offense. Defense is going to be the real big question here. You have Connor Hellebuck in net, who is probably a top 5 goalie in hockey.
Oh, yeah.
Now he gets Vezina votes every year in the past few years. But who are those last men before him? Nate Schmidt, they have him slotted as a first-line defenseman. He probably hasn't been a first-line defenseman since, probably close to 10 years ago with the Washington Capitals. It's been a while since he's been in that spot. So I do think this team lacks defensive prowess, but let me get your thoughts on the Jets.
Yeah, other than Morrissey, there's not really any name that kind of steps off the page for the defensive side. Obviously, it helps out having Hellebuck. Hellebuck has been, like you mentioned, phenomenal since he stepped in. One of the best young goaltenders down there. fantastic goalie. But I like a lot of the young pieces of the Wild. I like Ehlers. I like Connor. I really like the way that some of these guys play. And obviously the addition, or not the addition, but the re-signing of Paul Stastny. Obviously that's a big one to bring back in. Matt Shively, has been a cornerstone piece with this Jets team for a little bit now. Whenever you get Blake Wheeler back, that'll be good to have the captain back. So I mean, this is a good team. They kind of strike me as there's no like lead guy, but they do what it takes. They do what it takes to get it done. It's not necessarily the star power. It's just all around good teamwork and then great goaltending play by Hellebuyck. So, I mean, they have what it takes to get it done. And in this division that I don't think is necessarily too deep, I honestly don't hate the Jets' chances of making the playoffs again. I think this is a fun roster, just because it's who's going to do it. And whenever it's one of those to where like we're all going to look back one day and talk about, if we were to bring up names like from the 2021 Winnipeg Jets team, we're going to be like, oh, that's a good name right there. It's one of those you're going to be like, can't believe that team, made the playoffs, maybe even made a deep run in the playoffs or something like that. Who's to say, once you get into playoffs, there's no telling what could happen. But this is a fun team just because the star power isn't necessarily there, but the results are there. And I like it. The young guys are fun to watch. And they have a couple of crafty veterans who really help out, and you can tell that it really all works together. I like the Winnipeg Jets. I think they're a good team in this division.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think they just kind of fall into the middle of the pack. I don't have like super high playoff hopes for them this season, but in this division, kind of anything can happen. So, it'll be interesting to see down the stretch where they're at. Obviously, once Brian Little comes back, I think they're a more complete team because he definitely adds value to that offense. But yeah, they don't really stand out to me, and neither does this team because they're off season, and we're going to talk about the Nashville Predators now. They kind of regress. They fourth in the Central last year, so they barely got in. Lost to Carolina in the first round, but you look at guys they lost. Pekka Rinne retired after a great career, but you have to hit the reset button on goaltending. You trade Victor Arvidsson to the Kings for a return that I'm not super fond of. Ryan Ellis is off to Philly. Eric Haula, I'm trying to think of where he went. I think maybe Boston. And then Eric Goodbranson, who'd been a quality defenseman in the NHL for years now. You bring in Mikael Granlund, which somewhat helps the offense. I'd say he's probably like a second line center, but I don't think they did enough to really counter their subtractions. I do think they've regressed in that sense a little bit. You have Saros, who I think he got most of the starts last year, but for years this was Rinne's team. So I think this will be Saros' first full season as a starter. I could be wrong, but if things go wrong, you have David Riddick backing him up, who hasn't really proven to me that he can do much in a big spot. So you're going to want to rely on Saros. You still have Roman Josi, who's a top 5 defenseman in hockey, probably. Well, offense, you have, first line Forsberg, Johansson, and Duchesne is fantastic, but you don't have depth. Like I said, you get Granlund, which helps. And then, Nick Cousins, Cody Glass, there just isn't much there that really stands out to me that wows me. So I personally think this is another team that, could wind up missing the playoffs. It kind of falls into the Winnipeg Jets kind of caliber of team. But what do you think of the Preds?
They have a couple of guys to where I would think, if everything starts clicking, they could get on a run because I really like their defensive situation. I love Ekholm. I like Roman Josi, and Saros, honestly, in a short, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a short sample size, small sample size. He looked great, 17 games. The win-loss record wasn't necessarily there, but only allowing like 2.5 goals a game, which isn't, that's doable. And a .914 save percentage. You'll take those out of a young goalie with not too much experience. You'll take them. And then increasing that save percentage to around to over 9.2 in the playoffs. Saros, obviously it's not Pekka Rinne. That's the problem, is that you went from your cornerstone guy to a youngin. Saros is about 26, 27 years old. But I like the defensive side of things, especially, but it is kind of top heavy. If the if the Predators can make stuff happen with Philip Forsberg, obviously that kid's a stud. Forsberg is so fun to watch. One of the more entertaining forwards in the league, in my opinion. It kind of comes down to like some of the older guys, such as a Johansson, such as a Duchesne. If they can get something rolling, the Predators might be able to make something happen. But I still don't know if it's going to be enough in this division, just because of the depth. Once you get down to those third and fourth lines, it's looking a little bleak. And I just don't know if, whenever I think of this team, I think, can they compete with the Jets? Can they compete with, totally blanking. What the hell just happened? Can they compete with the Colorado Avalanche? Obviously stuff like that. Obviously, you're not thinking they're going to compete with Colorado. You're not thinking that they're going to compete with Winnipeg, or at least you wouldn't think. So there's no telling. But this is a team. I feel like this team has the highest ceiling for like the bottom tier of teams. I feel like this team could reach a certain point and fight for it if everything clicks. But is it going to click? And that's the thing I'm a little bit worried about. I still think the Predators find their way somewhere near the bottom of this division, though.
Yeah, I mean, they're not a last place team. They're not a first place team. I mean, I've said it. They're middle of the pack. So borderline playoffs. We'll see how things go in the division, because a couple of these teams could easily have a cold streak and fall off. Some of these teams it's hit or miss at times.
This is a really weird division. A lot of teams could be anywhere between like 7th and 3rd. Like, I feel like if everything clicks right, I mean, the Stars, maybe not necessarily the Stars, but like the Predators, the Jets, the Wild, the Blues, these are all teams that could go anywhere. This is like a really weird situation for a division. It's going to be kind of fun to place it at the end. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, the only team that I'm super confident in this division is the Avalanche.
Colorado. Yeah, absolutely.
I like the Stars odds of making the playoffs too. We'll get to both of those teams shortly, but before we get to them, we'll hit the Arizona Coyotes, who missed the playoffs last year. Another season below 500, but times are changing in Arizona. They got the new Kachina jerseys. They're rocking the new logo, or the new old logo, bringing that back to everyone's gratitude, because everyone was really looking forward to that. And I liked their offseason. Andrew Ladd, veteran forward. Shane Gostisbehere they acquired for just about nothing. I think he's a very valuable defenseman. Louis Eriksson, Jay Beagle, Antoine Roussel. Those are 3 quality veteran forwards who actually make up their projected 4th line, according to Daily Faceoff. Anton Strawman, we're familiar with him. Quality veteran defenseman. Carter Hutton, they bring him in. Former Predators goalie. I think he might have been somewhere else. He's their new starter. Darcy, I believe, who was there before? Darcy Kemper at a point.
Darcy Kemper, yeah.
Antti Ranta as well.
I was going to say, I know they're both gone. They have a brand new goaltending crew.
Yeah, Kemper, I think, has been gone. That's my bad. But Antti Ranta was at least still in the system. He's gone now. Yeah. Derek Brassard's gone, and Alex Goligoski. So, and Keita mentioned that Oliver Ekman-Larsson is gone, who was their top defenseman. So that's key to mention. But they do bring in Alex Galchenyuk as well. So I'm all over the place. But they did have quite the offseason. Phil Kessel, I think, it says he's injured now. I don't know how long, or if he'll be injured into the season. But obviously he's going to be a quality forward for them. Galchenyuk was a great pickup, in my opinion. Clayton Keller has definitely improved over the years. He's going to be their first-line left winger now, so that's special. Besides Gostisbehere, though, the defense concerns me. Strawman's nice, but he's not like enough to carry a defense, not at his age. Let me get your thoughts on the Coyotes.
My biggest concern is the tending. Leaving this team on the shoulders of Carter Hutton. I don't like that. Guy's 35 years old. Guy was almost allowing less than 90, not saving 90%. This is going to be a struggle bus. Obviously, I mean, we know the poor Coyotes, man, they've had so much. I mean, the state's been trying to get rid of the Coyotes for forever. But they have, you're right. I like the addition of Shane Gostisbehere. I think he's a fantastic defenseman. I love Shane Gostisbehere. But my problem is that like anybody I look at that could maybe have some potential on this team is just old. I mean, they're just getting up there in age. I mean, they may have one or two young guys here and there, but whenever I look at it, Ladd's in his mid 30s. whenever you look at the defensive side of things, Stroman's in his mid-30s. That addition, that doesn't help. I mean, yeah, sure, they're crafty veterans and all, but I mean, it's just it looks like almost there's no extreme. It's almost like you're either really young in Arizona or you're like about to get out of the league. It seems like there's no in between. I just don't think as fun as their offseason is with the names. Obviously, some of those names have some good some good following. You definitely would like to see some of those names on your team maybe in the past. I just don't know if 2021 is the time to be making those additions. And to hear some of those other names, that left, such as Ronta, such as Ekman Larson, such as these good players, and then replacing them with aging vets. I mean, maybe you get out of the cellar, but what more are you going to do than like seventh? I just don't know. This poor organization's been through a lot, and I mean, I don't want to sit here and bash on them more than I need to. I think they're near the bottom again, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no place for this team right now in the top four. Even if there are question marks with the Blues, Jets, and Predators, they all have better playoff odds than the Coyotes. So, I mean, I don't know what to make of this year from the Coyotes. I guess your goal is to finish above 500 maybe. Try for that fourth spot in the division. See what you can do. The in-division games will be important. And, yeah, I mean, just grind it out. I mean, you have young guys, develop them. Let Kessel do his thing. Obviously, he's probably the best thing you have going on offense. So, let him cook and I guess see what you can make out of this. I don't expect them to be eighth place or anything, but someone has to be. And with the divisions back where they are, back to normal, it could be them. I mean, really, it is possible. But they're gonna try to stay out of the cellar, as is this team who made the playoffs last year. So that segue doesn't add up. It's the St. Louis Blues. They finished 27-20-9, lost in the first round of Colorado. Not much for the offseason. They lost Jaden Schwartz to the draft. Mike Hoffman left. Tarasenko had requested a trade, but that did not come to fruition. And now Tarasenko is saying he's ready to work. So maybe something changed in the offseason, but Vladimir Teresenko is still a member of the Blues. They bring in Pavel Buchnevich from he used to play for the Rangers, but now he'll be making money for the Blues. Brandon Saad as well. He's been around a little bit, but he's still a quality guy. Overall, I like their offseason. I think it's about even, hit or miss. They re-signed Tyler Bozak. They give money to someone else. I don't have that information. I don't remember. But Jordan Binnington, he'll be in net. I like this team. I do think they have the chance to be better than fourth. But like I said, are they middle of the pack? I don't know. They still have plenty of names that I like. David Perron, Ryan O'Reilly, Braden Shen. Colton Parayko's really came into his own as a defender. Same with Marco Scandella. Torrey Krug, you're a fan of his. I know that. Justin Paul, he's fallen under the radar ever since he got traded from the Hurricanes to the Blues. He just kind of fell into it. I really like their defense. Their top four is among some of the best in the NHL. And if things go right, this team could potentially go far. What are your thoughts on the Blues?
I really like the Blues roster. I think they have a higher ceiling than a lot of teams think, especially in this division. Where you like their defense and, I love their net minding and I love Jordan Bennington, and then I love their forwards. I think they've got decent, especially with Tarasenko not leaving, to keep him there. I mean, whenever you have Tarasenko, you got Shen, you got Ryan O'Reilly. I mean, this is a team that can almost score at will. Whenever everything's clicking, we've seen Ryan Riley have strengths or stints where he's, a top 20 player in the league almost, whenever it comes to scoring ability. Vladimir Tarasenko, getting up there in age a little bit now, getting towards his 30s and everything such as that, but still one of the more entertaining players in the league whenever he's on too. So I love Torrey Krug, like you said. I think he's always I love him so much. I think he's one of my favorite players to watch in the league. On the defensive side of things, I love Jordan Bennington, one of my favorite goalies to watch in the league. I don't know if it's just a little bit of bias. Obviously, I'm wearing a Cardinals hat, so obviously a little bit of St. Louis homage. But I mean, I love the roster. I think, honestly, I mean, yeah, they might have a little bit of hiccups here and there, but this division is so weird to place that I could see the Blues finding their way right back into the playoffs again.
Yeah, I mean, the more I look at this roster, the more I like it. Honestly, as we get closer to the end, where we're gonna, give our top, our 8 of the division, how we're gonna rank that. They're winning me over, at least, visually, the, what do they call it? The eye test,
Yeah.
Reading this.
They definitely passed the eye test.
Yeah, the name test, the eye test. I mean, it's looking good. So we'll get to those rankings, of course, at the end. But a couple teams left, and we're going to hit probably the most important one, the Colorado Avalanche now.
You want to talk about passing the eye test?
Yeah, first in the West last season. They fell in the second round of Vegas, but, Vegas is a pesky team in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
They addressed some much-needed extensions. Gabriel Landeskog, Cale Makar, they both got the bag. Guys out, Saad, as we just mentioned, he's off to the Blues. Bellemare, Patrick Nemeth, nothing too devastating. This team is still pretty much what it was last season. Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Darcy Kemper is starting in net for them, so that's where he went if he left. Nazem Kadri, Andrei Burakovsky, Shushkin. The names go on and on. Sam Girard. Starting the season out is Devon Taves, who I think is one of the better defensemen for them. But yeah, you talk about passing the eye test. Reading these names off, there's some impressive things to really talk about with this team. Thoughts on the Avs? I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. They're elite.
Dude, they're going to be elite for time to come. I mean, they are. Not only are they good, but they're young. I mean, Cale Makar, Bowen Byram, they're both 22 and 20. Nathan McKinnon, obviously a young player in himself. If I'm not mistaken, Nathan McKinnon is like 25, 26, somewhere in that range. Then you get Gabriel Landeskog and everything else. I mean, what's this team's weakness? I mean, where does it go? Honestly, this team I think this team still has to be a Stanley Cup favorite. I mean, if they can perform in the playoffs, I mean, I've had multiple, last year I expected to see them. The year prior, I expected to see them. This is a team that's been kind of like the Maple Leafs in a way, where they perform like crazy in the regular season, and you expect to see them do this big run. And I don't know if it's just lack of experience, just because they're all so young. But I mean, now we might start to see them start to bring things together. Now they all have the experience for the most part. A lot of them have playoff experience, if not all of them. At this point, people like I said, Makar and Byram, obviously a little bit younger on the spectrum, but obviously McKinnon's been there, Landeskog's been there. You look on the defensive side of things, McDonald's been there, Johnson's been there. The list goes on. So I think it's clear that the Avalanche are a very, very clear front runner in this division. And I mean, the last couple seasons will tell you the same thing. The team's pretty much stayed intact for the most part. Obviously, an addition here, a subtraction there, but overall the core stays the same. And all they're doing is getting more experience in the league, and they're going to be a fun team to watch, man. They always are. Yeah,
I mean, it's really just going to get down to playoff performance because, like you said, they bring it every year in the regular season, as do a lot of teams. But, the playoffs are a different animal, and we see that, year after year, teams just fall short. I mean, there are several teams, the Leafs choke, the Avs do in a similar.
The Blues were known for that for a long time, too.
Yeah, I mean, the Islanders come up short, 2 years in a row now?
Yep.
The Lightning. So, I mean, yeah, there are teams that, it's tough to get over those humps in the playoffs. And, you don't want the Avalanche to be considered one of those teams, especially with the talent they have. But until they prove to us that they can be successful on a playoff level, we're going to have to think that. But, I mean, they are the division favorite, I would say. No question about that. And where they'll rank in our predictions, somewhere high. But we'll wrap it up with the Dallas Stars, who are good on their own. Made the playoffs, or I'm sorry, did they? No, they missed the playoffs last season. I'm sorry.
Did miss, yes.
But they still have a good team. This is a team that just 2 seasons ago now, they were in the Stanley Cup final. You lose a couple guys, Andrew Cogliano, Ben Bishop, injury-ridden. He'll start the season on the IR, but, you extend Miro Heiskanen, you're one of your top defensemen. You bring in Ryan Suter, who I think still has a little bit left in the tank. Braden Holtby's your new backup goaltender behind Anton Khudobin, which I think it's interesting having him back up Khudobin, but
Yeah.
those are two quality guys. Luke Glendening, Michael Raffel, they're good depth pieces on the forward lines, and these are forward lines with a lot of depth. You still got Jason Robertson, Joe Pavelski, Alex Radulov, Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin. I mean,
who do they have on that line with Seguin and Ben?
Ben is okay. So Seguin and Ben are both listed as centers.
Right.
Seguin's second line with Radulov and Kivi Ranta, who impressed me. I got to see him in the Stanley Cup Final 2 seasons ago, but he was pretty impressive. And then with Ben, it's Guryanov on the right wing, and then Michael Raffel on the left. Obviously, these lines will be pending, but this is what I have according to Daily Faceoff. Defensively, John Klingberg is very good, very good. Miro Heiskanen, I already mentioned, one of the better defensemen in the league. Ryan Suter, of course, has been consistently towards the top of solid defenseman conversations. This is a pretty complete team. Despite missing a little bit of depth and having a couple guys injured or leave. I still really like this team's odds at the playoffs.
I mean, yeah, this is a good team, and again, I think they kind of fall into the rest of those teams, and I think it just kind of gets weird for the Stars just because they're like I said, another one of those teams to where it could have a high ceiling. I think that 3 spot in this division is really going to be. I mean, it's going to be a big back and forth between a couple of teams, and I think the Stars are going to be right there with them. Either finding that 3 spot or on the outside looking in. Obviously, as long as they still have Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, as long as they still have the core of this offense for the most part, this is a fun team. And this is a pretty good team. And honestly, probably from starter to backup to even third string, probably the most complete goalie room in the NHL. I mean, Khudobin, Ben Bishop, and then also Braden Holtby. This is a very fun goalie room. Obviously not one big star, but I mean, 3 very, very competent and 2 very successful goalies in that. So, again, the Stars are one of those good teams. I like it, but it's just, is it going to be healthy? Obviously we've seen injury issues in the past for people like Jamie Benn. We've seen injury issues in the past, such as Ben Bishop. It seems like if they can stay healthy, they should be fine. But can they? And obviously, as only time goes by, you're only going to get older. It gets easier to get injured. It's going to be a lot. So I like the team. Do I like them to make the playoffs? Potentially, but it's all going to matter on if they stay healthy or not.
All right. Well, the time has come. We're going to rank them now 1 to 8. I'll start with mine. I'll give you time to think.
Okay. Yeah.
I already have mine written, so I thought I might as well lead us off.
Yeah.
I have the Avs winning the division. It's a no-brainer for me. I do think they're the clean-cut best team in this division. Second, I have the Stars. Like I said, they're just about a complete team. I really like what I see from them these past couple of years. And they missed the playoffs last year, but limited season will shake that one off. The St. Louis Blues in third. The eye test, I was liking the roster the more I saw it. Fourth, the crucial last spot in the division, I have going to the Blackhawks. I have high expectations. I like their offseason. Seth Jones is a game changer. I believe in Tyler Johnson. I do think they'll be able to clutch it out. 5th, 6th, and 7th, that's another, you're kind of grouping guys together. I went Wild for 5, and this is probably going to be the closest part of the division, but Wild for 5, Jets for 6, and Preds for 7. I think the Preds really regressed this offseason. They did not get back what they gave away. They let guys like Ryan Ellis you kind of have to hold on to. Victor Arvidsson, that trade just doesn't add up to me. And I'm overall kind of disappointed in what they did. But, they're 7th, and then there's only one spot and one team left. It has to be the Coyotes. I mean, are they a last-place team in other divisions? Probably not. I know they wouldn't be in the Atlantic. And thinking, maybe the Metro, the Pacific, probably not either. I think they're probably better than the Sharks, So,
yeah.
Yeah, they're just, they're the team that's kind of shit out of luck here. But yeah, that's my 8. Teams making the playoffs: the Avs, the Stars, the Blues, and the Blackhawks.
Okay. Starting at the top, obviously, Colorado Avalanche. You got to lock it in. You might as well just go ahead, bet the house on that. So Colorado Avalanche winning that division. I have that pretty easily. Number 2, I actually have the St. Louis Blues. I know you had them at 3. I have them at 2. I think they're going to be a pretty successful team. Again, this is a team that can fire pretty well on offense. I love the defensive. I love the couple of the lines on the defense. I love Jordan Bennington. I think the Blues have what it takes to get a pretty high spot in this division. Number 3, I have the Dallas Stars. I'm thinking in the head that they stay healthy. Obviously, if everything can stay healthy, if everything clicks the way it does, the Dallas Stars should have no problem making the playoffs in this division. I think they are a very good team. Like you said, this is a team that hasn't changed too much. We've seen a couple of changes here and there, but at the end of the day, for the most part, at the core, it's still the same team that was just in the Stanley Cup 2 years ago. This is a very good Dallas Stars team, and I could see them doing it again. Number 4, I have the Winnipeg Jets. I have the Winnipeg Jets sliding in. Hellebuyck is going to hold this team on his shoulders, per usual, and he's going to do that in style. Honestly, I like Hellebuyck to win the Vezina. I really do. I think he's up there. I think he's going to be a Vezina finalist. I think he should definitely be in consideration for it in a lot of years. I really like Hellebuyck and a great season from him to hold Winnipeg into that crucial number 4 spot. Number 5, I'm going with the Chicago Blackhawks. I think they're just on the outside looking in, assuming, a lot of great key additions. Like we said, Marc-Andre Fleury was literally gifted to them. It was ridiculous. So, assuming that he has a good season and does everything he can, they should be a good team. I just don't know if everything is done to the best of its ability. Number 6, I have the Minnesota Wild, sliding down a little bit farther, obviously missing key pieces. It's going to be a weird year. You're going to be relying on guys you haven't typically relied on or maybe have never relied on. Third liners are going to become first liners, stuff like that. It's going to be a weird season for the Minnesota Wild, just to, in my opinion, to try to throw something at the wall, see what sticks. And then Predators at 7, Coyotes at 8. I mean, it's just again, Hutton with the team on his shoulders, I don't like it at all. It's such a big drop off from Pekka Rinne. And then the Coyotes, man, they're one of those teams that what can go wrong will go wrong. And it's one of those to where, again, off season, sure, you picked up some pretty big names, but big names for 2015, not 2021. So it's one of those to where maybe a little bit too past their prime, a little bit too late for the Arizona Coyotes. And as fun as it is to see some of these guys on this team, I just don't think it's all going to work out. So Coyotes, sorry, man, but you're going to be hanging out in the bottom.
All right, so unanimously, the Colorado Avalanche win this division, but of course, we'll have to wait and see. We're in store for a long season, months and months, so keep with us for hockey updates and stuff like that. Live every Thursday, we'll talk hockey, as the season progresses, but until then, that's Will Paulson. I'm Matthew Perry. This has been GMs for Hire. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.